Hi, this is Quinn Costello with SF Indie Fest, and I'm really excited today to be joined with much of the cast and crew of The Whole Lot. And before we start the conversation, I just kind of want to go around the horn here, maybe starting with Connor, and we can do popcorn. You can throw to the next person, but Connor, what was your role in the film?
Hi, I'm Connor. I was the director of the film, and I couldn't have done it without the next person in line. So I'm going to throw that to Matt.
I'm Matt Bennett, the screenwriter of The Whole Lot. And I will throw it to Aaron and Lindy.
All right. Hi, my name is Aaron Kramer, and I play the role of Jamie in The Whole Lot. And this is Lindy.
Hi, I'm Lindy, and I'm one of the co-producers, and the other co-producer is Temba.
Thanks for the popcorn. My name is Temba. I'm also a co-producer with the help of Lindy. And since there's no one else to popcorn to, I'll pop it back to the host.
All right, thank you so much. And thank you all for being here today. And I guess, Connor, we'll just start with kind of the general question, but can you kind of talk to me a little bit about developing this film, where you got the idea, and did you kind of like start from a place of these are the resources that I have and I'm gonna build a film from that, or is it like I'm going to kind of create this film and then I'm going to go find the way to make it?
Yeah, so this particular film was kind of born out of frustration trying to do the latter process. I had some experience in the industry as a production coordinator, kind of got to see some higher level stuff, both on set and in the office, which was great perspective. But it doesn't teach you a lot about film finance, which is fine. That's its own skill. And I was very frequently engaged by some other artists, and a lot of the time they were saying like, "Oh, I've got this script and I want to do this, and here's what I'm thinking, and let's have a meeting about it." And you can kind of only do that for so long before you eventually have to say, "Hey, like, I'm sorry that I'm not this guy, but I'm not your guy to get you the money for this. I can spend it in a very efficient way, and I can manage it very well. But in terms of getting it, that's not a skill that I have." Um, and that's frustrating for artists because obviously we're in a very expensive medium. We want to make these films, but they do cost money, and um, obviously an artist wants to be themselves fairly compensated, and they also want to make sure that they are doing that for the people that they engage as well. So not only are we seeking money for just to make it happen practically, but we also want to be good people about it, which kind of makes it more difficult in a way. And so after a while of like kind of having these meetings over and over again, kind of realizing that like that method workflow never really went anywhere. And I kept having to say over and over again, like, let me know when you've got the budget because I'll take care of it for you. It never materialized for any of these people's projects. And after a while, I thought, what if we thought about this in the opposite way? And instead we knew what we had available to us and tried to build something around that. So I started in kind of two ways. The first place I started was the cast, and I know some very talented actors that are both enthusiastic, but they're generally speaking not hyper successful professional actors. And when you know someone who can deliver a performance but doesn't come with the baggage of like crazy demands and a lawyer and an agent, then you're just making fun things together, and that's great. So that was the most important part of the puzzle. And then continuing on from there, I knew I could kind of make any movie that I was able to with the people that I had in mind to do it. But of course, we needed some sort of story for them to be involved in. And so that kind of got born out of the location, which was actually the exterior of that location was a short film that I made in college. We filmed the exterior of that particular location, and the owner showed up like halfway through the day and was like, "Here, let me come inside and let me show you the inside of this barn. And I walk inside and it's just like full of these priceless classic cars. And immediately I'm like, I maybe need to come back here. And so we that was my thought was, I know the people that I want to work with. I have a location that I can get for free that gives us a lot of value, both in terms of like physical value for the money, but also like story value, because assets are worth fighting over, and that's why pretty much every family drama revolves around that kind of a story. And then the next step was finding someone who could actually create that story based on the resources that we had. And I thought of Matt for that role because I had witnessed Matt write a lot of plays, and he and I had talked briefly about some other screenwriting things. But one of the things that he and I had actually worked on together was a local theater company would do what was called the slam competition. And you just start at like 8 a.m. and by 8 p.m. you had a play. And it was structured in kind of a similar way where you'd be kind of given these things that you had to incorporate. And it would also involve like knowing which actors you were working with. So I kind of presented Matt in this similar thing. I gave him more time than 12 hours to write it. And I said, here's what I've got, and let me know if we can come up with something. So that's the approach that we took. And in my opinion, that's the reason why we actually have a film.
And Matt, I wonder if you can kind of speak to like one thing in watching the film that I thought was really interesting is it seemed to be really interested in the kind of shifting dynamics of power. You know what I mean? And in every interaction, the power was kind of flowing in a different direction, you know, and somebody seemed to have the upper hand in one scene, and then that would be flipped in the next scene. And I was wondering if that was something you were kind of consciously thinking about and kind of weighing the sands between each of the different characters. How did you kind of come up with that balance? And can you just kind of let us in on that process a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. Well, Connor came to me and told me that he wanted a mainly three-hander script. And I like writing three-handers.
I'm sorry, can you just explain what a three-hander script is?
A three-hander is just a story with three main characters.
Okay.
Really. So I like writing triangles of conflict because, like you said, it allows there to be someone who's active, someone who's passive, and someone who's kind of a neutralizing force in any situation. And those roles can change depending on the nature of the conflict and the point of views of the characters. A two-person script is a lot more difficult by comparison because over 70 minutes of time like this film runs, it's harder to structure the conflict in such a way that it doesn't get repetitive, and that it builds to the end of the 70 minutes. Whereas you have three people, you can play kind of a shell game with the person who's instigating, the person who's defending, and the person who's peacemaking at any one time. So yeah, I'd written about a dozen of those theater slams before, so I'm really accustomed to being given a title, the headshots of three actors, and a location. So I was only too happy to jump into that. Connor didn't give me much except the location and the idea that it was going to be a family drama with a dispute over these classic cars. We went out there and I knew right away that I wanted a scene in the California Highway Patrol car. It's just one of my favorite scenes overall.
Still one of the coolest things I've done too, just in
Yeah.
general.
Yeah.
When you, Aaron, when you were first kind of reading the script and stuff, how were you initially kind of envisioning this character, and it seems like it's a character that at different points you sympathize with a little bit, and at different points you're just like, this guy, oh my
Yeah.
God, this guy's the worst, so and I thought you brought a lot to the performance that kind of, made things really interesting for the audience in terms of bringing that depth and stuff. So I was wondering, like, can you kind of speak to your interpretation of the character when you were reading the script, and then how that was maybe kind of evolving for you as the film making process went on?
Yeah, absolutely. So when like Connor and I talked about wanting to do a project together for a really long time, and then there was this like one day where Connor sent me a script and was like, hey, I want you to read it, I want you to read for this part. Didn't give me any plot details. So I'm reading it, and then I'm like what genre this is, like what's going to happen, and then it gets to the twist. And I think Lindy was present when I was reading it, and I just kind of like put the script down and was like, whoa, okay, this just went into a direction. I gotta do it. So like I've never done a feature film before. I've done short films and I've done theater. So this was new territory for me as far as like kind of my like process goes, because I'm so used to like weeks of rehearsals before doing a play, or like, just like a short film where there's like a couple of scenes and you don't have to worry too much about like tracking too much of an arc between, different shots and whatnot. So it was exciting, but it was also kind of like venturing into new territory. And like Connor and I spoke on the character one day. We just kind of like set some time aside to talk on the phone about Jamie. And my process, I guess because of how I look or the presence I bring or something, I have a tendency to be typecast as like real can I swear?
Yeah, this is Indie Fest. You're
awesome,
free
real
to.
shitheads. Which is not a reflection of me as a person, but it's a lot of fun to do. And like so I've gotten really good at when I'm looking at a character and I'm trying to get in the mindset of a character, I always think the first thing I think is like, okay, well, what is this character's moral compass? Because I want to make sure that like when you play a villain or someone who's doing really horrible things, like it's going to come across as more authentic if you're not doing like a kind of mustache twirling, like, I'm going to go get this done. Like it, and when it's more like, no, this person actually believes in what they're doing. They think that everything they're doing is correct. Right. And so, and Connor, without me even saying that out loud, like Connor just kind of knew that. And so we talked about, I remember when we talked, Connor, one of the main things was like, Jamie just wants to win everything. Jamie always looks at everything like a contest and like a competition, and he wants to always come out as the winner. And I thought that was such a wonderful piece of direction, because it just baked in this like motivation that I think is so potent, and then it just, I feel like it started to really fill in Jamie as a character, and I could start to see him become like a real guy. And then when we were actually on set filming, like it was interesting because like it wasn't until the first day we shot that this kind of quality of almost calm with him came out, like, and also sort of like mirroring a bit, because like Blake has this like, kind of like cool, confident air about him. And I kind of thought like, oh, it would be kind of funny if like Jamie was always trying to kind of like one up I can never remember Blake's character. Eli, that's right. But like and with the themes of everything of like we're both kind of fighting over Adela and everything, like maybe there could be some kind of psychological thing there where like Jamie's trying to kind of one up him by kind of mirroring him. And so I was a little surprised that there was this kind of collected, sort of just something really frightening. Like, and
Yeah.
I was really kind of consumed by that feeling. And then, you know, I didn't get to watch the movie until, you know, a few years later when it was finally finished. And it was like, as soon as I watched it, I was like, oh my God, like that feeling came back. Like Jamie is such a creep. And like I know people like Jamie, and I've been around people, like just people that show up and it's like every word that comes out of their mouth is just like, what is going on? But I did also want to really bring a sense of like, yeah, Jamie's just kind of pathetic, and Jamie is not as cool as he thinks he is. And you know, Jamie does want to win every situation. To what end? You know, like in his mind, he's the coolest person who walks into any room and can get whatever he wants. And so
It's all like short-term thinking.
exactly, yeah, like Lindy,
Yeah.
yeah. And so like yeah, I kind of liked that. I liked that as a process, to kind of treat each interaction as like a contest, you know. And then I love that it developed this like really just layered but like just sinister character. It was really fun, and a very honestly probably some of my proudest work, if not my proudest work as an actor so far. I'm very impressed with how it all turned out.
Yeah, it's amazing work. And I love that notion of like simultaneously being kind of like nihilistic but needy at the same time. It must be a lot of fun to be able to play with that kind of dynamic as an actor. And Lindy and Temba, I wonder if you could each kind of speak to kind of this idea that, you know, when you're making an independent film, there's a lot of like problems to be solved, and you know, and you're kind of trying to, and with any film that's at any level of funding. But can you talk about like this film was made during COVID, right?
We actually shot in 2018, so we managed to miss it, and then we reshot in the winter of 2019, so we just like barely made it in.
Oh, interesting. Oh, okay. Well, but I guess, can you just kind of speak to your specific kind of roles on the film, and in what ways were you trying to kind of like solve this create this work and kind of work around, you know, the resources that were available in terms of, you know, financing and kind of putting all the puzzle pieces together?
Yeah, Lindy.
Okay. Sure. Yeah, I can. So this was actually like the first film that I had produced and like been in the production side of things. And Connor directed it, but Connor is like the executive producer and like the production guru. But yeah, so like I feel like it was really fun because we had such a tight shoot schedule. It was only 5 days, including it's like 4.5 days, including the rehearsals. Wow. And so it was just like getting thrown into the deep end with film. And so it was just everything just, I was helping with some of the pre-production things and like getting some gear and things sorted out before we got there. But then it was just all like team-based problem solving, like in the moment, like what we got to do. And then Temba's like walking across the snowy field to go ask these construction guys to like if they could turn off their rig. And then we figured out to incorporate it into the movie. and also
including
like yeah, and like Connor's method of getting like, you know, using resources to create a story, I have been, ever since The Whole Lot, I have been working in that direction of the stories I want to make. And it's hard because a lot of people come up with like really interesting or good stories that mean a lot to them and they really want to make it happen. But it's just like, yeah, this medium is expensive and it's tough to raise money for it. And so I think about The Whole Lot often very fondly because I'm just like, oh yeah, and you could just do the thing that you can do instead of like trying to force something that is unfortunately unrealistic. And so I love it. Really helped it was a really great experience to help me focus more on the story and the characters and not all of the extras, because I feel like sometimes like I've worked on some projects where it feels like there's so much focus on like the look and feel of it that the story and the characters are just totally pushed aside.
Yeah.
And so it was really great to like, I think that's another big part of like why it works so well with the theater components, because it is so focused on the actors being in this space together and not so much the setting, but the setting is so interesting that it's not like boring to watch, like just watching actors on it, like recorded on a stage or something. So yeah, like I love that whole experience, and I learned so much about that, the immediacy of the problem solving and pivoting when needed, and how even if it feels like, because the construction guys, like it was worrisome, like of course it was.
Right.
We had to shoot that shot outside the barn at that moment.
And it can be difficult sometimes to explain to someone who's in the middle of yard work why what you're doing actually needs to happen right now.
And they're paid. They have to be out there. You know, as far as
Right. Yeah. They to kind of communicate the stakes, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm
But
walking
it's
out
hard.
there with paper plates with you know, our crafty and meals. Hey guys, listen,
Yeah.
I need you right now. You can take a break. You want to eat. We just need to get this
Right.
shot real quick.
We'll throw you you know, associate producer credit, like whatever it'll take.
Right. And that's what, you know, producing is also is
Yeah.
improvising there on the spot. You know, I did my grad studies in Chicago, which Lindy ended up going to as well at
Yeah.
Columbia College Chicago. So going there and being a part of Chicago's independent filming community, you learn to, you know, street casts, you know, to problem solve there in the moment. Especially it works out great if you have a permit. If you don't, you know, guerrilla style, but you definitely have to act on your feet in the moment. As well as Lindy says, the story comes first. And so for me, when Connor sent me what Matthew had written, it was pretty unbelievable, to be completely honest, because what Matthew had written, it was smooth like butter with each turn, you know, with the dialogue, it was just so smooth, and you're in it. And I can't remember the page count, but it was around what 70 to 80 pages in that range. And you keep moving the page, you keep turning it. At the time, I was an assistant at a film company out here in LA. I just moved out here from Chicago. So as I said, like I'm reading a bunch of scripts, around like 4 scripts a week. And so you're reading what's out here in the industry. You know, you're aware of what's being submitted, what's being passed. And so from that, it kind of fine-tuned my storytelling senses and my sensibilities. And I'm a disruptor at heart, and I love to make the audience feel and like what's cinema without emotion. And I read that. I read our, you know, the third act, and immediately I was totally down to help Connor and Matthew's vision do this. And for the backstory, Connor and I met as interns. We were bunkmates in Festival de Cannes. We had like a mutual friend, and that mutual friend was my first assistant director in Chicago. And it was just random. And then I got the call from Connor. You know, he sent me over the script. He wanted to direct, and he comes from a producing background. And I felt really honored for him to think of me, you know, as a producing partner, to kind of like hold it down. So I'm not from Salt Lake City or Park City. So that was one of the biggest challenges, was producing from LA. That's where Lindy came in to hold it down. She knew everything around the town and the city. So I came in, you know, almost as an expat. And yeah, we're trying to do like 20 pages per day, you know, in 4.5 days. and we made it work. That was the best part about it. Like, we actually made it work through camaraderie, team morale. Crafty was great. Everyone understood the story. Everyone knew their roles. And we would huddle in the morning. We would go to the trailer. We would go into the set, do our rehearsals, and we knew exactly what we wanted to do during the day, and it was a very transparent set, with whatever Connor was dealing with for a certain scene, what I was dealing with, what Lindy was dealing with, it was open. And so yet we were able to hear other people's voices, other people's suggestions, and we considered it. And then we moved forward as a team. And that was the best part, knowing at the end of the day that we got what we needed. And then we went into the following morning, at 5 a.m., all up in the snow. I said, I'm living in LA. I'm so spoiled. And now I'm back out here in the snow, like Chicago filming, but it was beautiful. It was gritty. It was coherent. It was a great
Cold in that barn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It gets pretty chilly out there.
Yeah.
We had to turn the heaters off, of course, for sound. And
Right, of
so
course.
we were all in coats. Yeah.
Connor, can you kind of there's a lot of reasons to not make a film, right? So can you kind of this film festival is, largely caters to people who are really big fans of very independent films and independent filmmakers themselves. So I was wondering, do you have a message that can kind of that you could kind of direct towards people who are maybe struggling to kind of get to that level of actually getting the film made? What would you say? Maybe you could, even if you don't have something directly to say to them, maybe you could just speak to your former self or struggles that you've had to overcome in your professional journey.
I think for me, the biggest lesson that I learned is that you think you know, but you don't know. And so, trying to get previous film projects off the ground, having made a couple of shorts in the past, having worked on a lot of other people's shorts in the past, having worked on some of my friends' features in the past as well. The features were rare, but they did happen. And I figured if they could do it, I could do it. And something that I kind of forgot about when thinking about these independent, very low budget features that my friends had made was realizing how long it took to get them done. And we spent a few months kind of going back and forth with some pretty minor script adjustments, but I'd say largely speaking, the script stayed consistent in terms of story beats throughout the months leading up to the actual filming. We did a couple of on-set rewrites, just some pretty small stuff that we felt suited kind of what we had learned about the actors at the time. And just being open to that, I think, was really important. My favorite thing is when somebody comes up with a better idea than me. And that's my favorite thing directing. And it's also my favorite thing, just in my day-to-day life, is I'm like, hey, let's do this thing. And someone's like, actually, wouldn't we do it this other way instead? And I think that makes way more sense. Why didn't I think of it that way? Great, we'll do it like that. So being open to change. It's not necessarily taking the path of least resistance, but it's definitely about being able to understand that you may not be the ultimate authority all the time. And it's okay to just settle for being the ultimate authority most of the time. But because of that, and because of the amount of time it took to do 2 picture cuts after filming, realized that we didn't have a coherent ending, put together a pickup day so we could get a coherent ending, put that shoot together, film it, be out of work for almost 6 months due to COVID. So everything was on hold for a while, come back with a little bit more money to be able to do another picture cut, figure this is probably done now, and then go through the process of, hey, I need a sound mix. Okay, I've got you and I'm giving you a deal, but I get to prioritize higher level work because of that. totally fine. I understand. Thanks for doing me a favor. So that's like a 2-month longer process than it could have been. Same with the color grade. Same with redoing the color grade because the first one wasn't really that good. And all of that is to say that the lesson that I learned is, as long as you're making some progress consistently, it's better than not doing it at all. Because I could have given up at any point along the way and just abandoned that particular film. I've done that before. I've done that to Matt before. Sorry, Matt. We came up with a better one. It's fine. But yeah, the idea that it's like if you just keep working on it, eventually you're going to come up with a finished product, and it may not be perfect, it may not be exactly what you wanted, but you have it. And it's a little like it's a little like fitness advice, where it's like, well, you got to go to the gym consistently if you want to get stronger, and it's not about losing weight, it's about like actually being able to like function with your own body. And then you kind of hear that advice and think like, oh yeah, that makes sense, I can deal with it. But until you're actually like going through the process, you're like, oh, I don't think I got it before. So now I get it, having gone through. So don't give up, find a way to keep going. And if you have set yourself up to try and do something impossible in the first place, and you think that by starting something impossible, that as you go through the process, it will just become possible, it's probably not going to happen. Better to start out with something that is possible. It will probably get harder in the process, but it will remain possible, and you will actually have a movie to show at the end of it.
I'd just like to piggyback on Connor's comment in general about filmmaking. Yes, the planning fallacy looms large in filmmaking, but I want to compliment Connor in saying that he came in with a very clear plan for how to chunk this film, and he didn't chop it up in a traditional way with, okay, we've got this bit of dialogue with these 2 actors and then this with all 3, but he kind of chunked it into just parts of the story. I can't remember whether it was somewhere around 10 to 12 chunks. And the only place that didn't work out was in the climax, right before Eli hits himself in the head with the wrench. But Connor, and you know, I think that was the last day of filming or the last couple of days of filming, and we just hit a wall and realizing like we can't shoot it the way we want to. But Connor was extremely open to the cinematographers who said, you know what, let's just throw out the plan and let's do this freestyle. And he let them do that, and it worked out.
Yeah, the editor was very complimentary of that particular scene. He was like, we've got so much coverage on this, it's great. I was like able to do all this stuff. Why didn't you shoot the whole movie this way? And I was like, we didn't have time.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate everybody being here, and thank you so much for sharing this film with IndieFest, and I can't wait to see what your team comes up with next. So please share it with us when you do. And yeah, and thanks again.
Thank you, Quinn.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Yeah,
Thanks
thanks for
everybody.
having us.